Every protagonist of the Fallout series entered the wasteland empty-handed and left the world forever changed. From the Vault Dweller drawing the short straw in 2161 to the sole survivor crawling out of their cryogenic sleep chamber 200 years after the bombs fell, they have all become legends. However, their legacies are not equal, with most of them simply fading away after the end of their story or mysteriously vanishing. So today, we do something that the games have never really done before, putting all of these heroes up next to one another, telling the story of each of their lives and actions, and deciding which one of them is the greatest based on the only thing that truly matters. In Fallout: Legacy, what they left behind once everything was said and done. This is why today, we're going over every Fallout protagonist explained and ranked in detail. It may surprise you to learn which one ends up coming out on top in the end. The Vault Dweller. Before there was ever a new California Republic, or an Arroyo, or a Chosen One, there was one man with a faulty water purifier chip who had around 5 months to locate a replacement before everyone back home would die from thirst. The Vault Dweller was born in 2141 within Vault 13, which is unique to the franchise in that it was constructed as advertised for what it promised: survival underground and in isolation. There were no bizarre psychological experiments or sabotage of any kind. It was merely a community of people living underground, unable to survive much longer due to a lack of drinkable water because the Vault's water chip had malfunctioned. Jacoran, the Overseer, rounded up every able-bodied citizen within the required age range to draw straws. The Vault Dweller, our lucky protagonist of the first game, drew the short straw. On the next day, December 5th, 2161, he set off, his time ticking away from that moment forward. These initial days in the wilderness proved to be extremely difficult. The skeletons of explorers whom the Overseer had sent out earlier in search of a new home were scattered around the entrance to the vault, providing an indication of how harshly the wasteland treated those who weren't prepared to face it. The first major town he encountered was Sandy Sands, a dilapidated desert outpost that would eventually develop into the capital of the new California Republic. He cleared a rad scorpion cave infestation that plagued Sandy Sands and saved a young girl named Tandy from the Great Khan's raider gang nearby that had abducted her. Tandy would eventually become the most beloved and long-lasting president of the new California Republic. Her salvation would become an epic tale recounted throughout the Republic for over a century. There is a statue of the Vault Dweller in Shady Sands. His legacy became part of the founding mythos of the most important nation created in the post-apocalyptic West. None of that still mattered yet, though. His mission was still not complete. The information he acquired led him to Vault 15, where the Overseer believed a new water chip could be discovered. It couldn't. The access shaft to the water purification system had caved in and was inaccessible. His quest led him to the hub, where he arranged for the transportation of water to Vault 13 by hiring caravans. He instantly knew this was a grave error, but it was also inevitable. From here, the journey led him to the Necropolis, the irradiated city of the former Bakersfield, which was home only to ghouls, caused by the malfunctioning of the Vault 12 entrance during the war. It was here that he first encountered members of the super mutant army of the Master. One of his companions, Ian, was killed here by one of the mutants using a flamethrower. This incident never left him, recorded in his memoirs decades later with the same weight it carried the day it happened. But he did find the water chip in the remains of Vault 12 and managed to bring it back. Aware now of the threat that the mutant army represented, the Overseer of Vault 13 asked him once more to go out to stop it, to find the source and destroy it in return for obtaining a disc for the Brotherhood of Steel from the Glow, a very irradiated nuclear explosion site. The Brotherhood offered to arm and guide the Vault Dweller to the Master's Cathedral located in the Boneyard, the remains of Los Angeles after the war. Dogmeat, the very first instance of the canine companions, perished at the cathedral defenses at the assault. What he discovered below the cathedral was so disturbing that it was beyond anything that could be named in the wasteland. Richard Gray, an individual who had survived the war but had succumbed to the FEV vats at the Mariposa military base, becoming a huge mass of psychic-fused flesh and hardware, had set up his rule in the remnants of a demonstration vault. The Master had devised a scheme in which all mankind would be genetically engineered into super mutants, creating a unified race capable of surviving the harsh conditions of the post-apocalyptic era. This scheme he referred to as Unity. It is in the hands of the Vault Dweller that the Master is brought to ruin, either by showing the weakness of his plan, as FEV made the super mutants infertile, rendering Unity biologically impossible, by convincing him to end himself, or by activating an explosive device and destroying the cathedral. He came back to Vault 13 on May 10th, 2162. The Overseer welcomed him at the door, expressed his gratitude, and exiled him forever from there, because, according to him, Vault Dweller has transformed beyond recognition. He could serve as an example for others, and encourage them to leave the vault. He described this moment as the hardest decision he had to make in his life. The Vault Dweller turned his back to his home and never went back there again. A number of other dwellers were unhappy about their overseer's decision to banish the Vault Dweller and followed him in their quest for freedom. They moved together to the north and on July 10th, 2165, founded a village in the remote canyons of southwest Oregon. Arroyo was built until August 18th, 2167. The Vault Dweller got married and fell in love with his wife Pat. His daughter, who was born on October 2nd, 2188, was appointed Arroyo's elder. In the end, he left the village for good and disappeared on January 16th, 2208, leaving only his jumpsuit and Pip-Boy behind. The man who began with nothing but a broken water chip wound up founding a civilization, a republic, a lineage that would save the Earth on 2 separate occasions, and a race of survivors who learned to thrive because he would not accept failure. His decisions and passage through the wasteland changed the world in more ways than can be described, and the influence did not end with his disappearance. The Chosen One. The Chosen One was born on the day of March 23, 2221, being the grandson of the Vault Dweller and the son of the Arroyo Elder, brought up from childhood to become the tribe's hero and future ruler, proven through trial at the Temple of Trials and Drug Trips with the tribe's shaman Hakanin to harden his spirit. Arroyo of 2241 was failing to survive. The crops were dying. The Brahmin were starving. The kids were ill. The Elder dispatched the Chosen One to look for a GECK, the Garden of Eden kit, a device of pre-war times that could bring barren lands back to life, suggesting Vault 13 as its possible location. The Chosen One was 20 years old when he set out. His journey encompassed more distance and more moral dilemmas than those faced by nearly all other main characters. His journey took him through Klamath, where he freed the traitor Vic from slavery, and through Vault City, whose records finally pointed him towards Vault 13. He traveled with the super mutant Marcus through Broken Hills and navigated the 4 warring crime families of New Reno, each with their own demands and price for cooperation. Upon arriving at Vault 13, the former home of the Vault Dweller, he learned that a society of smart Deathclaws, ruled by one named Gruthar, inhabited the facility since the arrival of the Enclave in mid-May 2241, when they slaughtered the dwellers as soon as the vault door was unlocked and kidnapped the survivors. In exchange for fixing the broken computer, Gruthar gave the Chosen One the remaining Gek of the vault. After that, Gorus, the son of Gruthar traveling with the Chosen One, sensed that his family was in danger. On their return, they discovered another massacre at their home. Frank Horrigan, a huge Enclave super mutant enforcer in power armor, killed Gruthar in a single powerful punch. On their return to Arroyo, the Chosen One discovered it was entirely deserted. The shaman, on the brink of death, passed on the final prophecy, saying dark souls came to take the warriors captive with Hell's Lights, and that everyone had been taken by the Enclave. This took them to Navarro, an Enclave military base. The Chosen One sneaked into the base in Enclave power armor and was mistaken by Drill Sergeant Arch Dornan for a private who had lost his weapons. He got what is now a legendary dressing down as described by the Enclave remnant Cannibal Johnson in Fallout New Vegas, and widely recognized as one of Fallout's most iconic memes. In the base, he released an intelligent Deathclaw known as Zarn, acquired some data in a memory card, and got the help of a cyber dogmeat who had just killed the scientist who used to disable his legs as punishment for biting him. Knine's information led them to San Francisco, where a Chinese supercomputer identified the headquarters of the Enclave, the Poseidon oil rig, located 175 miles offshore. The team hijacked an automated oil tanker and started their voyage. At the Poseidon oil rig, the Chosen One learned that the people from both Vault 13 and the Arroyo tribe were test subjects for the FEV virus. The Enclave's scheme, approved by President Dick Richardson, involved releasing a mutated version of FEV into the atmosphere that could kill everyone in the wastelands with even the slightest amount of genetic mutation, which, after 200 years of exposure to radiation, included just about everyone there. The Enclave would arise, purify, and reclaim their rightful place in America. The Chosen One liberated the captives, detonated the oil rig by activating the self-destruct sequence, and battled Frank Horrigan, along with other surviving members of the Enclave who realized that Horrigan would have them executed for desertion if they did not assist him. Frank Horrigan was defeated as the rig exploded and they escaped, destroying the Enclave. The survivors were brought back, the GEC was activated, and then New Arroyo was founded. The Elder, his mother, died soon after that. He became the new Elder and guided New Arroyo as it flourished into becoming a dominant civilization. Marcus, moved by his actions, later went on to establish Jacobstown in the Mojave Wasteland. In 2281, while talking to the courier, he said he never found out what had become of his old comrade, but he had an inkling that things worked out for the best. The Chosen One prevented the extinction of the human race. Almost nobody outside his immediate circle ever fully understood how close it actually came. But the threat of the Enclave wasn't quite over yet. The Lone Wanderer was born on July 13, 2258, within the Jefferson Memorial in the remains of Washington, D.C. Their parents, James and Catherine, conducted research on the project called Purity. This project aimed at purifying water in the Capital Wasteland region and delivering potable water to a large group of people. During the birth of the child, Catherine suffered from heart failure and thus died giving birth to the Lone Wanderer. Devastated by her death, James stopped working on the project and gained access to Vault 101. He worked there as the Vault's doctor in exchange for shelter. His child's origins were kept secret from both the child and the Vault population alike, to preserve the Vault's social experiment and cohesion in permanent isolation. The Lone Wanderer remained living undisturbed for 19 years in Vault 101. They received a Pip-Boy 3000 on their 10th birthday, became friends with Amata, the overseer's daughter, took the GOAT aptitude test at the age of 16, and finally, in 2277, their father James suddenly disappeared inexplicably. The Vault security personnel murdered his assistant, Jonas Palmer, and abducted the Lone Wanderer, but Amata assisted him in escaping the Vault. The journey continued to Megaton, where the Lone Wanderer successfully defused a fully loaded atomic bomb and also helped Moira Brown in writing the Wasteland Survival Guide, which was subsequently circulated throughout the wasteland of the entire United States territory. From there, they moved to the Galaxy News radio building, where they met Three Dog, who confirmed that James had just passed through on his way to Rivet City. There, Dr. Madison Lee revealed the truth of the Lone Wanderer's birth, and confirmed James had returned to Project Purity. In the Jefferson Memorial, the holotapes led to Vault 112, where a computer-simulated version of Tranquility Lane was run under the control of a digitized pre-war scientist called Stanislaus Brown, who had been torturing the people of Vault 112 for years in a simulated 1950s neighborhood. The Lone Wanderer came in, shut it down, and reunited with James, who had fallen prey to Braun's twisted game together. They went back to Project Purity, but the Enclave, not quite defeated yet and still having a strong presence in the Capital Wasteland, showed up, headed by Colonel Augustus Autumn, who demanded power and control over Project Purity. The intentions behind the Enclave's desire for Project Purity were not merely about gaining control over a water source. There were internal rifts within the organization regarding what should be done with it. Colonel Augustus Autumn, the military commander for the Enclave, wanted to fix the purifier and distribute the water through the Capital Wasteland. His logic was quite practical. A community that had to rely on water that the Enclave controlled would have no choice but to comply with the wishes of the Enclave because of its needs. It did not matter that no one would die in the process, though that would have been beneficial. Their sole goal was simply dependency leading to submission. Autumn believed this was the only sustainable path to restoring the Enclave as America's legitimate government, and he was prepared to defy direct orders from his own president to pursue it. These were the orders issued by President John Henry Eden, an AI programmed to rule over Raven Rock, a secret Enclave base isolated from human contact for decades. This entity formed its own twisted ideology, believing that it was best for the nation. According to Eden's plans for Project Purity, the water should be polluted with an evolved version of FEV designed to destroy anyone with any genetic mutation or radioactive exposure, meaning almost everyone outside the Enclave's vaults, since they had spent more than 200 years surviving in the wasteland environment. Ghouls, super mutants, and even the ordinary citizens who had lived in the wasteland were not spared. Eden's vision was genocide, just like the one stopped by the Chosen One on the Poseidon oil rig. But Colonel Autumn was first to the scene, and seeking to stop him, James caused a leak of radiation in the Project Purity control room. Colonel Autumn survived by taking Rad-X. James didn't survive. The Lone Wanderer escaped to the Citadel, the ruins of the Pentagon, now the Brotherhood of Steel's headquarters under Elder Owen Lyons. Together, they attacked Project Purity with the help of Liberty Prime, a pre-war giant robot which launched miniaturized nuclear missiles at their enemies. The Lone Wanderer entered the control room and ended the standoff with Colonel Autumn. They punched in the activation code, which was their mom's favorite Bible verse, Revelation 21:6, the one James had quoted throughout their entire childhood as the only connection they had to their mother. Their life was saved thanks to a radiation explosion which knocked them out, courtesy of Sarah Lyons. 2 weeks later, the lone wanderer regained consciousness. Project Purity was online. The water supply was pure and free of Enclave control again after 200 years. The Elder Lions appointed them as a Knight of the Brotherhood. The lone wanderer found the base of the Enclave at Adams Air Force Base, used its satellite weapon on itself, and destroyed the Eastern Enclave for good. The Deacon of the Railroad, found in Fallout 4, verified that the water in the capital wasteland remained pure after decades. Moira Brown recorded their tale 20 years after the events of Fallout 3. The Wasteland Survival Guide shared essential knowledge all across the continent. The lone wanderer was 19 years old when they left Vault 101. The legacy they created outlasted them. The Courier. The Courier's tale is one which started with a bullet to the head in a shallow grave near the city of Good Springs, Nevada, in the year 2281. That's where most people's tales would have ended, but the Courier kept right on going. Prior to that evening in the Good Springs Cemetery, they were a seasoned trail courier who had years of experience traveling the wastes of New California, through Circle Junction, New Reno, Vault City, Fort Abandon, and across the Big Circle Brahmin trails. As mentioned by Ulysses in the Lonesome Road DLC, they were not new to the wasteland, and carried a name already attached to consequences they weren't aware of yet. One of such consequences was the Divide. It was a community in Southern California that was kept alive by the likes of the Courier through deliveries of food, medicines, and other items necessary to keep a community functioning. But one day, a single delivery changed everything. A delivery of something picked up from Navarro that was not known to the Courier caused the detonation of intercontinental ballistic missiles that were hidden underground in the community. The Divide was destroyed, with everyone in it perishing, without the Courier realizing what had happened. Ulysses knew. He was the first Courier 6, the one who would have delivered the platinum chip to New Vegas, but who would turn down the assignment the second he learned the Courier's name, for he recognized it. He was there in the Divide. He had survived. And he had spent the following years forging a philosophy of destruction and regeneration from the events that transpired there, believing that the Courier was the embodiment of everything that the old world had done to those trying to forge a new one. Mojave Express tasked the Courier with delivering the platinum chip, a memory device requested by Robert House and designed to be a crucial software upgrade for his army of Securitron robots. From Prim to New Vegas in a move orchestrated by none other than Benny, chairman of the chairman and House's own subordinate, the chip's delivery was interrupted at Good Springs Cemetery, where Benny executed the Courier by shooting them in the head twice and having them buried. One of House's Securitrons named Victor pulled the Courier out, while Doc Mitchell managed to save the Courier with emergency surgery. Awakening without the chip, devoid of all memories about the event, and surrounded by enemies. The NCR, Caesar's Legion, Mr. House, and the newly reprogrammed and independent Securitron named Yes Man, in a desperate attempt to ensure the victory at the Second Battle of Hoover Dam through securing the platinum chip, the Courier was once again in the crossfire of warring factions. The events that ensued were the most politically significant trip in the history of the post-war American Southwest. The Courier had recovered the platinum chip, got rid of Benny, as they thought best, and became entangled in a four-sided fight where the future of the American Southwest would be decided for centuries to come. It was up to them whether one of the already established political powers could be victorious in the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, or maybe none of the powers should win it, and they could just take control of the Mojave via the Securitron network and the authority of a robot named after a Yes Man. The DLC campaigns, on the other hand, expanded the Courier's story across 4 separate regions, each one adding a new layer to who they were and what they were capable of doing, and collectively, they paint a picture of a protagonist whose impact extended far beyond Hoover Dam. In Dead Money, they foiled the plot set by Elder Elijah in the Sierra Madre, leaving what had been a death trap of a city that had already claimed everyone who tried to enter it in honest hearts. They put an end to the tribal war in Zion Canyon, leaving behind those communities that were alive only due to the decision they had made. Dead Horses and Sorrow's tribes remained alive while the White Legs were wiped out. Each place left behind after the Courier had passed through it was transformed for good, not because they sought fame, but because they kept moving, and so did the wasteland around them. In Old World Blues, they repossessed their own brain, heart, and spine, which were surgically excised from them at a pre-war research facility filled with renegade scientists, and then they claimed the facility itself, transforming the most dangerous abandoned research facility in the Mojave wasteland from a hazard into a resource. This fact stands out. All other protagonists defeated their antagonists and moved on. The Courier had a tendency to turn whatever tried to kill them them into something useful. This formula, stepping into disaster and stepping out having more than what they started with, sets the courier's legacy apart from all other protagonists on this list. By the time they reached Lonesome Road, survival was no longer an issue. The question became whether just surviving was enough anymore. In the Lonesome Road, it was finally time to take on Ulysses among the remains of the Divide. The discussion that takes place at the end of the Lonesome Road DLC is perhaps the closest the Fallout games ever got to an open philosophical discussion on the nature of the wasteland, what caused it, and whether the survivors are worthy of building something new or just deserve all that happens to them. According to Joshua Sawyer, the lead designer of Fallout New Vegas, the courier was neither an amnesiac nor a character without a background. They had confirmed their travels and connections with the world, having traveled through several places for the last few years before the events that begin the game. In other words, the most vague protagonist among the Fallout series turns out to be the most connected with its history. Even before being shot by Benny, the character was changing the course of history. They were shot twice in the head, they had some internal organs removed, there was a nuclear explosion, there was exposure to a lethal cloud in the Sierra Madre, and there was a combination of pressures from all major factions of the Mojave Desert wanting to use and kill them all at once. And they decided the fate of the American Southwest with whatever was left after all of that. Not because anyone gave them a reason to, because they got up out of the grave and kept walking. The sole survivor. The sole survivor is different from all other Fallout protagonists, because there is something about him that no other protagonist in any other game can claim. Nate is the only one to remember the pre-war era from actual first-hand experience. It is not through storytelling. It is not because of vault lore. It is not due to the memoirs written down by his grandparents whom he never met. He had his house in Sanctuary Hills, Massachusetts, a family. His Mr. Handy Codsworth, whose primary task was to maintain the house indefinitely, he had taken it very seriously. Plans for the morning of October 23, 2077. A Vault-Tec representative knocked at the door with the pre-approval admission papers. Nuclear warheads dropping minutes later. They rushed to Vault 111 with their wife, Nora, and infant Sean in hopes for safety, but ended up getting frozen before anyone could ask any sort of question. Kellogg and his two associates from the Institute came in 22227, a century and a half after the freezing process had started. They killed Nora, who tried to resist, and took away Sean, their infant son. Nate himself was put back to sleep again, powerless and helpless, watching everything happen in front of him behind the frosted glass of his cryogenic pod. That moment of helplessness, when he could not do anything, was the source of all the pain that the entire story of the game revolves around. Every action that the sole survivor takes in the Commonwealth starts from those 30 seconds. He woke up in Vault 111 on October 10th, 2287, 210 years since the bombs had hit Earth. His wife was dead next to him. His son was missing. He was alone in the vault, being the last living human there. The sole survivor can be found in 2 confirmed iterations. These include Nate, who is a decorated war hero of the 2nd Battalion of the 108th Infantry Regiment of the United States Army in the Resource Wars era, and Nora, who is an attorney educated at the Suffolk County School of Law. Both of these characters can be played in the game. Nate acts as the narrator of the prologue and is seen on the cover of the game, hence seemingly making him look like the main character due to the game developer's choice, but it was never officially made canon. His first step on leaving Vault 111 was to head back to Sanctuary Hills, where Codsworth, who had kept the house alive in blissful ignorance for 210 years, mowing dead grass, polishing a car that wouldn't start ever again, waiting for a family that would never return, welcomed them, and suggested Concord as the closest settlement showing some life. Here he encountered a bunch of survivors trapped in the Museum of Freedom, surrounded by an army of raiders. From here he got a T-45 power armor from a destroyed vertibird that fell from the roof of the museum and a minigun from its turret. He killed both the raiders and a deathclaw that was lured out by the gunshots. This was when he met and rescued Preston Garvey, the only remaining officer of the Commonwealth Minutemen, which had dissolved under the pressure of the lawless world outside. That rescue at Concord was the act that began the Minutemen's revival, with the sole survivor as their new general. The quest to find Sean took them to Diamond City, the largest city within the Commonwealth, created within the Stadium Bowl of Fenway Park, complete with the the green monster wall of the stadium. Then to the railroad, an underground group whose mission was to liberate the synthetic humans from the clutches of the Institute and give them new identities. The journey also took them through the wreckage of the greater Boston metropolitan area, through places such as Cambridge and Lexington, to the glowing sea, which marked the edge of the map, and where there was so much radioactive contamination that one could die in minutes without protection. But ultimately, the path led to a teleportation machine designed by the Institute as the only form of transportation they used, and directed them underground. Down there, the sole survivor learned the secret behind Sean. He had been abducted as a baby because his DNA constituted the purest material to manufacture synthetics, untouched by years of radioactive fallout. Sean's genetics had been used to engineer an entire new generation of highly advanced synths. The head of the Institute, a man called Father, was Sean himself. Sean was now an elderly gentleman, nearly 60, who had spent his whole life within the Institute while his parent remained encased, suspended in cryogenic freeze, 100 feet above him, dying from terminal illness. Having run one of the most powerful and feared organizations in the Eastern Wasteland for decades, and wanting, before the end, to meet the father he had never known, Scone passed away shortly thereafter, making the sole survivor the new director of the Institute. How the sole survivor chose to wield his newfound power would decide the future of the Commonwealth. To destroy the Institute, along with the Brotherhood of Steel, who came into the Commonwealth on the huge airship Pridwin, considering synths an abomination that needed to be exterminated, to assist the railroad in liberating the synths, thereby putting an end to the Institute's oppression, run the Institute internally and try to change it, or employ the newly resurrected Minutemen and strike down the Institute single-handedly without the help of any other faction. Deacon of the Railroad admitted that the Commonwealth had indeed been transformed. The Institute was no more. The Minutemen, born out of 4 individuals trapped inside a museum, had become the major security force of the area. The reason why the story of the sole survivor feels so unique in the Fallout universe is because it revolves around grief and a very particular kind of isolation brought about by it. All others were forced out of a vault, or out of a village, or the life that they made for themselves in their world before the disaster struck. What the sole survivor lost was an entire functioning world, working televisions, a viable economy, hot showers, mythology and archaeology to everyone around them. A loss that no one else can truly understand. He finds his son, and then ends up losing him to old age before he could ever be the person he lost him as. He does save the Commonwealth, but without ever quite finding what he came looking for. That is the heaviest starting point in the franchise, and one that was carried all the way to the end. The ranking all of the protagonists on this list managed to save the world somehow. All of the 5 were presented with dangers that could have completely changed the direction of the Wasteland's history had they been unsuccessful. Yet impact isn't only about the magnitude of the danger overcome or the spectacle of the final showdown. It's about what got built as a result, what kept existing due to their actions, how far the wave reached, and how much of it was left behind years down the road when the next game's protagonist took up his mantle. On top, without any real competition, comes the Vault Dweller himself. While his quest had the smallest scope, to find a water chip and prevent the mutants' attack, what happened next because of him was much longer in terms of cause and effect compared to other heroes in the series. He saved Tandy. She founded the new California Republic that eventually ruled over the entire West Coast for centuries, defining its political, economic, and cultural development for generations. He founded Arroyo, which gave rise to the Chosen One, saving virtually all humans from extinction. All of it traces back to one man drawing the short straw, then getting exiled for saving everyone without a word in his own defense. The second one is the Chosen One. The threat of the Poseidon oil rig was the most dangerous of all antagonists in the series, a mutant strain of FEV that would kill any human being, no matter how small the genetic mutation, meaning all surviving humans by 2241, as FEV was present in their genetic makeup since birth. He halted its progress, liberated his people, created New Arroyo, took them to join the new California Republic, and then ruled them without ceremony, without statues, and without anyone outside a select few knowing just how much he'd saved. His fellow survivor, Marcus, started his own community called Jacobstown in the Mojave years later, and was fondly remembering his old comrade in arms when 2281 rolled around. The wasteland survives because of the Chosen One. Very few of those who reap the benefit even know his name. Third comes the Courier, the most politically influential protagonist in the series by virtue of their influence over the future future of the world's development. The Second Battle of Hoover Dam established the power structure of the American Southwest for decades to come, and the Courier decided it. Their actions before Benny shot them had already altered the world. Their decisions in the Divide, the Sierra Madre, Zion Canyon, and Hoover Dam altered multiple regions permanently. Fourth comes the Lone Wanderer. Millions got access to fresh and potable water thanks to Project Purity, which, according to Fallout 4 sources, is still functional and supplying pure water. The Eastern Enclave should be gone forever. The Wasteland Survival Guide offered useful information regarding the post-apocalyptic world for everyone on the continent. The Lone Wanderer was 19, left with nothing but a Pip-Boy and a dead father's legacy, and the sole survivor is fifth in our list. The sole survivor's impact is the most geographically contained, the Commonwealth rather than a region or continent. But the Institute's end and the Minutemen's revival reshaped New England's future permanently, and they hold a distinction no other protagonist possesses. The Vault Dweller was selected through Overseer's lottery. The Chosen One was chosen by his people, and the Lone Wanderer followed his father. Meanwhile, the Courier took the job because he wanted to earn some money. The sole survivor, on the other hand, left the vault on their own accord to find one specific person 2 centuries later. They all changed the wasteland. They all paid for it in ways that were never fully accounted for. None of them got to go home because by the time they were done, home wasn't there anymore in the form they left it. That is the tradition. That's what it means to be a Fallout protagonist. If you've enjoyed the video and want to know why Vault-Tec's experiments are still ruining the wasteland centuries later, click the video on the screen.